Welcome, welcome, welcome. David, are you with Mid-Main?
Yes, I am.
I knew I recognized you. I was like, all right, go ahead and get started. Um, we should have a couple more folks pop in today. I know that some people reached out to me to let me know they weren't going to be able to make it. But before we move into our presentation from ICA, I wanted to first get our minutes from the last two meetings approved. Did everyone have an opportunity to look at those minutes before? Yep. All right. And any changes or updates that needed to be made? Conflict of information? Is there anyone who would like to so that we omit the minutes for both April and May?
Nikisha, I'd make a motion to approve both the minutes for April and May.
Thank you, Erin. Do we have a second?
Sure, I second.
Thank you, Danielle. All right, so any against? Been approved. I will send those over and get those uploaded to the finals, uploaded to the Maine Homeless Planning website. So as we discussed in our meeting last month, to hear from I sent her the questions that we had come up with prior to and just asked Patrick if he could put a presentation together to kind of help us get started in our conversations around data and what we wanted to see. A lot of what we said was we don't know what we should be looking for, and so we're really really in a good spot to have ICA available to help us and kind of get us on the right path. So I am going to turn it over to Patrick. The entire meeting is centered around this conversation, so please write down any questions that you have as he's going through the presentation, and then, or I'm sure he'll let you know if he's open to answering questions as we go along. So Patrick, I will hand it over to you. You're muted, Patrick.
Yep. I'm sharing my screen here. If someone can just give me a thumbs up and you can see the presentation. Okay, great. As Nikisha said, my name is Pat Shocker. I am the director for HMIS for both. Jeff and Mahindra will be regular attendees to this meeting as well. So I'm sure many of you have sat through, I don't know, a handful of my presentations and seen this slide too many times, but just so we're all on the same playing field here. So this is sort of what the Maine transition has looked like. We responded to Maine Housing RFP in summer of 2025, awarded in the fall, and then began evaluation system administration in October of 2025. And then January 1 officially became the HMIS lead. So today, Nikisha sort of asked for a SWOT analysis type thing about the HMIS system and the transition and how that's all going. So that's sort of what I've done here. Just as a person who has done too many SWOT analyses in his life, I always think it's a little bit too deficits based. So you won't see weaknesses as the W for my SWOT analysis, just because I don't particularly care for that. So I use what could be improved and what's next, sort of as a way to address things that we will be doing going forward. So what your strengths are, what can be improved, opportunities for improvement, and then I do use the threats language too as well. If you have questions during this presentation, feel free to just raise your hand or chime in or interrupt. I'm pretty open to whatever. It does not matter to me. So just to start with the strengths of the Maine HMIS, sort of as they pertain, especially to this group, and data quality. So we have providers with a longer history of using HMIS, and a lot of that, stems back all the way to the formation of the database for some of the projects that are in there. So we're looking at projects in some cases that date back to the mid-2000s. So plenty of history and longevity for some agencies within the database, which can come with its challenges as well when you're talking about historical records. But as a provider base, many providers that have worked with the system for a good long while and have an idea of how to use the system, and have sort of had those habit forming conversations internally about what it takes to make sure that your HMIS is up to date as part of your duties as a participant in the homelessness response system. Significant buy-in from the provider community. I think this is really apparent from my perspective when we take a look at the amount of feedback we've received. So since January, you all and your colleagues and peers in the homelessness response system have submitted about 1,200 cases to the support help desk at icalliances.org. And so, that amount of volume means you certainly must care. And so it seems that the provider community is hungry for some changes and sort of just some communication from us as HMIS lead about certain things happening within the database. I would also say one of the other strengths is support from the Maine COC and Maine Housing. I think in a transition like this one, we sort of come in knowing that there are things that people want to change about the database, and you don't really know sort of the full breadth and depth of what you're getting into until your hands are on the database and you're working in it every day. And I think that Maine Housing and Maine COC have had the patience for us to sort of get ourselves up and running as we've gotten into the database and started to make changes to it, and started to make back end and front end changes to it. So and throughout the whole thing, they've been incredibly supportive of our efforts. So, and then finally here for the strengths.
I wanna, sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe there's a question. If there is, that's fine. And then finally here, desire to use HMI system to improve overall homelessness system. And this may just sound like something that's self-evident, but there are plenty of communities that we work in where HMIS data is a task that is done and is not really ever seen as something to be used to advance the cause of ending homelessness. And we sort of are Sisyphus and pushing that rock up the hill every year, and nothing really ever changes. Our homelessness response system never changes. Our investment from external partners never changes, but that does not seem to be the case in Maine. Seems to be the case that your state government is a great partner in addressing homelessness, and your state legislature and governor's office has been really invested in homelessness as an issue generally. So can't say that everywhere, and it's a really nice thing to see in Maine. All right, what can be improved? So sort of as it pertains to this group, we're going to go through like the building blocks and nuts and bolts of the data. So getting into the data, we have some issues that are better than others, some that are that we definitely want to improve upon. And this is neither here nor there, trying to make assertions about in previous HMIS lead or your experience as a user within the database, or whether your agency has provided enough training, any of those things. These are simply my observations as a person who's working in the database. So overall data completeness for some of your universal data elements. We found that in interim updates, income and disability information are some particular areas of concern that we will use to highlight in our training. So we've developed a new user training that is very heavily focused on these areas. Some of the things that trip people up is that income has both a HUD verification section and then a companion question about whether the person is receiving income and then a total amount of the income. And these three things all need to be in alignment in order for the income portion of the entry to work. And we find that there are significant numbers of income entries that need significant work. And so that's certainly an area for improvement. Interims are kind of their own case. So just taking a look at some of the providers that have been around a while, both PSH and Rapid Rehousing, there are certainly housing move-in dates that are missing. Some of that is not necessarily because housing move-in dates were a thing when a client may have entered a unit. So permanent supportive housing, we didn't implement housing move-in dates until 10/1/17, meaning anything that happened before that usually lacks a housing move-in date. And so with some of the larger PSH projects and clients have been in there a long time, there's no housing move-in date. So eventually we'll have to, rectify that and make sure that everybody has a housing move-in date. So just some things to sort of be aware of, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Existing user knowledge of making corrections and identifying errors. I think some of this comes back to training. We're sort of doing our best to make new user training available, but also like ongoing training things available to existing users. So knowing that 95% of the users have not gone through the ICA training sort of makes it difficult to gauge what level of knowledge folks have and how engaged they are in making corrections within the system. So some of it is training on our end, but then also sort of like changing the culture about training, that it's totally okay to say that you just don't know a thing, and you can pop into our learning management system and watch a 3-minute video about how to do a specific thing that you may have forgotten about somewhere along the way. So retraining and continuing education sort of as an HMIS user, we find to be an effective way to get users who have been in the system a while and may just need more information to get them engaged and improving upon their knowledge. What else could be improved? Overall communication between HMIS users and ICA. I don't think we've hit the sweet spot yet. Certainly have tried a few different methods about communication. And I think some of it is, we haven't been staffed up in Maine for a terribly long time at this point. And so we're trying to figure out ways to send out emails to as wide of a net as possible, and then hope for some indication of response, or use the system news or what have you. So we're sort of feeling that process out. So obviously open to the suggestion there about getting communication out. And then finally, frequency with which errors are communicated to users by ICA. So this is sort of a we're not doing it enough type of situation, and we also don't we have to split the difference between too much and not enough. So some of the errors that I talked about above will be things that are communicated to you by some of our system administrators as they start the quarterly robust checks, which is a series of checks that we do each quarter in order to make sure that we are prepared for the longitudinal systems analysis that begins in October/November. So some of those are basic errors. Some of them are sort of like your second or third order that are a little more complicated. But by and large, we just want to make you aware of that this error is continuing to happen or has happened within your client base. And so we want to make sure that you are prepared and know how to fix those errors. So we'll be communicating with agencies and sending out those error reports basically any day now. So here's the what we're doing side of the W in SWAT. So reconfiguring training. So I already mentioned we're doing new user training. But so new user training is currently focused primarily on the HUD workflow. We will have RAI, PATH, SSVF. I think that's probably it. By October, all of those will be in there. And then we'll start with helper videos. So housing move-in date, recording, income, anything that is sort of like an issue that continues to pop up within the database. We recently had our first monthly HMIS Q&A hosted by our colleague Jeff, and it seems to have been, I would say it was a success. I have absolutely zero expectations about how many people should show up to make it a success. I think we had 25 or 30 folks, but the idea would then be to make this a space where the time is useful for folks to ask any question they have about the database, any problem they're encountering in the database, et cetera. And so we'll have another one next month, of course, and hope to see more people than we saw the last month. And the way the monthly Q&As worked elsewhere is we have sort of a growth of users over the first 6 or 8 months of the monthly Q&A. And then we're sort of at a peak of usefulness. And then folks start to correct their problems or get their questions answered. And then they don't need us as much. And so those monthlies become quarterlies. And so that's sort of the natural progression of things. We just haven't gotten there, obviously, because we're brand new at it. So the other things we're doing, making staff available to meet with agencies individually. And that includes in person. So Jeff is in Maine currently. Mahendra will be moving there. So we will we'll have staff on the ground that you can meet with in person. And then finally, assigning more user-friendly assessments to projects throughout the database. So this is more a user-facing question or a user-facing item. Previously, the assessments used in Maine HMIS were just the boilerplate WellSky assessments that had only the universal data elements without a lot of instruction about the how, the why, and the what you're entering. And so this is, we've created custom assessments to sort of adjust that and make sure that you as an HMIS user are informed about the thing that you're doing when you're entering, who you need to enter for, and the purpose of it if it so applies to that element. So those should be assigned to all of your projects. And of course, if they are not, please let me know. Opportunities for improvement. So I think one of the things that's been really useful in other spots we've been in is making sure that there doesn't, like, we as ICA don't need to be involved in every data quality intervention for you as an agency. So the idea is to make a report available to you so that you can run it as many times and as often as you want to identify your own data quality errors and be able to fix them in real time, so that you aren't so reliant, or you aren't reliant upon a staff member to necessarily run that report for you. So we have a couple of data quality reports available in Business Objects presently, but we're building out that suite of reports as we speak. The primary one we have right now is a COC monitoring report, but we'll be moving some others over from other ICA implementations as well. Implementation of quarterly robust checks. So I already talked about that a little bit. So this is done through a HUD tool called EVA, which generates an error report for each agency or each project. We can narrow it down even smaller to work through data corrections. And so the files generated by that HUD tool are what you will be receiving as agencies participating in the database. And then obviously providing better information to funding entities such as Maine COC and Maine Housing. I think that occasionally those entities have not had the amount of HMIS information and input that they would have liked to have as far as making some funding decisions or being able to rely upon the populations that have been served over time, or I don't know, some of the simpler things like income increases, move-in dates, exits, permanent housing, all those sorts of things. So those are some places we can improve, and I think some of them are low-hanging fruit, but sort of on the funding side, these are things that help you make decisions about funding. Threats to improvement of the HMI system. So this is me, I suppose, delivering a little bit of commentary to some degree. So overloading system users with too many changes. This is sort of always my fear that if we're doing too much too fast, we're going to have people's eyes glaze over and they're not going to want to continue working with us, or will not be so amenable. Sort of walking a tightrope between the thing that we've been charged to do as contractor to shore up the HMI system, but also make sure that the people who are actually on the ground doing the work every day have the buy-in to be able to use the database, and we aren't changing too much too fast. So that's always a threat, and that never really goes away, I would say. But in this case, because we are rolling out changes at a little faster pace than maybe I'd like to, that's certainly one thing that we're concerned about, of course. Too much enforcement and not enough incentive. So in the HMIS lead seat, I have virtually no carrots to dangle. I am just here as basically a compliance and enforcement mechanism, right? So I can't, I don't have anything that I can say to you, if you do this, then more dollars will come your way or something like that. I'm basically a trip to the dentist so that you can continue on with your organization's health as far as your data is concerned. It's nothing anybody who is a case manager looks forward to when they show up to the office every day, right? So I think that trying to balance being like the bad guy and saying, hey, your data is in really bad shape. We need you to make a bunch of changes because, frankly, you haven't paid attention to this thing in a really long time. It's not really the way that we want to communicate with folks. And we don't want it to be strictly a type of situation where we are just an enforcement mechanism, right? So trying to partner with folks more than be, sort of the enforcement mechanism. I would say resistance to changes within the database among existing users. This is just one of the impressions that I've gotten in working with Maine. There are a handful of users that have worked in the system for a very long time and have done a pretty darn good job at doing the thing they've done for their agency, but occasionally they aren't so excited about the changes we're making. And so we're not making changes to the database sort of like just because we want to, or that it's just something we feel like doing almost all the time. It is something that HUD has demanded of us. And so I think maybe some open-mindedness among some of those users that may have done this a long time and through no fault of their own, of course, feel as though they are using the system exactly the way they're supposed to. But from our end, we know that there needs to be some improvement there. And then assumption of ICA or user intent without additional communication. And I think this just comes down to the communication piece. As we figure out sort of the best way for ourselves to communicate with providers in the homelessness response system, we need to obviously give a little grace both directions to before we're assuming intent about the thing that's happening, whether it's changes being made to the database or whether it's error reports being sent, those sorts of things. So please obviously communicate with us as much or as you feel is necessary to understand the things that we're doing. And then after that, Nikisha sent over a series of questions, so I'm gonna just go through those one by one too. So I think there are 5 questions in total. Here's the first of the 5. What should we be paying closer attention to within the data? Completing all necessary UDEs, especially the HUD verification section. So I talked about this previously. There's like a little bit of inconsistency that's creeping and maybe has been there for some time in some cases. Income sections specifically, disability sections specifically, and then just some general inconsistency about which data elements need to be entered for which members of the household. And I think that's almost entirely from WellSky's their default assessment, having no instructions about which members of the household need which data elements. And so hopefully through the custom assessments, we will have addressed some of those things. I think also as providers, any recurring data errors that are issues each year when you're completing your APRs and CAPRs, to me, there's just like not really, there's no benefit to like waiting until your APR or CAPR is due and then addressing those issues at that time. Because I think what we witnessed, and this happens everywhere, this is not a criticism of Maine, that users or folks who are charged with submitting their CAPRs or APRs would get to the day or the week of submitting their CAPR and say, I have all of these errors and can you help me fix them? Well, of course we'll help you fix them, but if you correct these throughout the year, we won't be in this situation. So just a little bit of changing the way those are addressed. And then issues stemming from using a common sharing group. So this is common even if you don't have the sort of the visibility challenges that Maine has had. So we've adjusted the visibility so it's down to 1 sharing group. Previously, really there were 8 sharing groups and we've gotten rid of 7. So the sharing group, while good for sharing information, occasionally leads to some information carrying over from another provider's entry to your entry that you may not want, or another provider accidentally exiting one of your clients. And in your entry exit instead of their own. These types of things happen. So I think being aware that these are all possibilities is a good thing, especially when you're looking at things like history of homelessness, income, and move-in dates too. What are the most common errors we're seeing? As I mentioned, HUD verification sections with income and disabilities and the consistency with the yes/no question. So we'll have, I can probably splice out just that portion of our new user training just as a standalone video for folks to watch about completing those sections to make that available as a training piece. Housing move-in dates. When I ran this last night for our PSH projects, like I said, some of this is just a historical issue, but about 75% of PSH folks were missing a housing move-in date or had exited without a housing move-in date, or the move-in date predated the entry date. So one of those things, and so we will start to like chip away at some of those too and make sure that folks know what they're doing there so that move-in dates are populating correctly. And then also, as I said, completion of all universal data elements for each member of the household. How can we better support providers in improving data quality? Encouraging discussing ongoing data quality issues with ICA staff. Like I said, we're certainly open to communication, and I think the harder the error, the better in terms of trying to troubleshoot what's going on with your specific cases. Is a little more fun on this end. The more complicated it gets, the more we can sort of dive in together and take a look at what's going on. So I think just being open with us about if you're having a struggle with something, that would be preferred. And then I also think encouraging existing users to review content in our training LMS. So like I said, we'll make some more shorter videos available for existing users so they don't have to go seeking out all new training. So it's not really my intent to have all of the existing users go back through training. That would be a little bit of a nightmare. But yeah, short of that, obviously we want folks to be able to enter information and have the necessary information to do so effectively. Now, this is a bit of a departure from everything I've talked about thus far. What opportunities exist for integrating DVRC and other databases? So on the DV data side, the Department of Justice does not allow the entry of domestic violence data into the HMIS database. And so after having conversations with HUD, this would have been end of the Biden administration, I had some questions sort of about these policies and asked HUD to give me some further guidance about them. And HUD directed me to the DOJ, and the DOJ subsequently directed me back to HUD. And so that we're not really in a place where, as far as I know, I mean, this administration could be different, but I kind of doubt it, that there's a lot of ability to use domestic violence data that isn't within a database that ICA has control of to really like dig into that data so far. What I think makes sense is to partner with DVRC to align where possible on the performance and data quality side so that we're sort of all operating on the same plane of here are the expectations of the data that you are entering, and that making sure that they have good data completeness and performance and all those things sort of where they can. Integration of other databases. I wasn't sure exactly what was meant by this, but we do have projects in different places. We have one here in Iowa where we do have a data bridge with another database, and they are fairly cost prohibitive. So that one alone is a weekly transfer for a shelter that's In total, shelter and transitional housing, about 400 beds, and it costs me about $10,000 annually. So they are cost prohibitive. To import. Exporting is a different story. Exporting data, obviously there'd be some necessary agreements in place, but exporting data is really a thing that we can do without incurring those costs. So importing, expensive; exporting, pretty inexpensive. I don't know, Nikisha, was there anything else on that that like, did you want to clarify? Like, if there anything in the question that I missed?
No, not
Okay,
from the you.
How might we improve data collection for populations we may be missing? This is one of those questions that I really like. These are the questions I like to think about. Obviously, as HMIS lead, we incur a per license cost, and we don't necessarily want to get in the place of issuing licenses to anyone and everyone, right? But by the same token, we do want to capture whatever data we are missing that pertains to homelessness. And so one of the strategies we've employed, obviously not in Maine at this point, but sort of lowering barriers to system access where possible. So whether it's we're doing in-person training for that agency to make sure they know what they're doing, whether it's we're making online training customizable for them to make sure that they're, or just anything we can do on the training side. But also then within the system, if there are questions about how to operate, that we're like, as they start up, making sure that they have all the tools they need. I think also among some immigrant communities, this is sort of like speaking from prior job experience working on a database where we kept refugee information, arrival information. It's pretty strong skepticism about data security. And so we want to be really mindful of that and make sure that immigrant communities have an idea of what it is that they are entering into, and like that this is a secure database, and that the information put into the database is used to inform other folks that there may be services needed, but it is not used in a way that is meant to be exploitative in any nature. But these are all like kind of the harder conversations to have, where this is really not black and white. This is like sort of exhibiting all of your soft skills at once to make sure that folks feel like they're being heard and their concerns are being addressed as much as possible. So yeah, I don't know how this like manifests in Maine among the homelessness response system, but would love to find out. Yeah, I think that's the last of Nikisha's questions. So I'll open it up for questions and I'll stop sharing if that's all right.
Dean.
Of course, I'll start things off here. Patrick, I just wanted to start off by saying we're just thrilled to have you and Casper. I know he's on the call, and Jeff and Kendra, who we've worked with, and your honestly your entire team here in Maine. We're thrilled to see the progress, the movement, how things are going. I'm just really, really, really excited. So just didn't want to miss that opportunity to sort of say that. I did want to sort of, there's one thing that just sort of comes to mind in hearing the presentation, just from a user perspective or a system perspective, in terms of, what would be the indications for folks that they know we're continuing to improve?
Yeah.
I mean, what are the ways that we can know that we are continuing to be on the right track?
Yeah, I think there's sort of like when you think about HMIS sort of as like the the client level, organizational level, and the macro level data compilation and analysis. Obviously, for an agency, like we kind of want to live at that middle spot, and what really we want to make evident to agencies is you're doing a good job or you need improvement, and there are the vehicles kind of work both directions. So for agencies, having the ability to run the reports themselves with whatever regularity they so choose. Obviously, like more often the better, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm also the guy on the other end of it, right? And making sure that those agencies know how to fix those issues, and then sort of keeping on the trajectory of we're fixing the issues that we know how to fix. We can see in the reports that our error percentages are pretty low. So that's your indication of doing a good job. And then the other, from our side, the HUD tool, the EVA tool, if your errors that are being communicated to you are few or none, then obviously you're doing a good job. So it's going to kind of be, it's a multi-pronged kind of thing where agencies, once they sort of get in the habit of running these things themselves, then they should know based on the evidence that they're doing a good job or not.
So they will be monitoring themselves. There won't be any indication from the system, from ICA that.
Oh, there will. Yeah.
Okay.
So the quarterly robust checks, this is the way this process works is basically it's a HUD tool that is developed by Apt Associates, where we're running agency level data quality through the HUD tool, spits out an error report, and then we are communicating that to agencies. So the first round of those is happening. I don't know, Jeff, Mahindra, is it this week, next week?
Last week.
Okay.
Last week.
Yeah.
So these have started to go out to agencies, so they have an idea
Cool.
of what those issues are. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Danielle.
So actually, I had a question about that because I was just looking through my little Tedford report and I was like, well, I wonder if my changes stuck. Is there a way, like there used to be that EVA site that you could put stuff through? Is that, if I wanted to recheck it, could I do that myself, or do you guys double check that like I actually fixed the errors that I thought I fixed? Or is there a way to confirm that? Because sometimes HMIS is weird and I swear I changed things and then it like you check it again and it's like, nope, sorry, didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious to double check.
Casper, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so Eva, you can make your own uploads, and it's a slightly different process than any of the other like submissions that one would make. You pull the report slightly differently. I'm not sure, given Maine's visibility, like exactly how effective that would be, but we can also always pull and re-upload reports as well if you have questions about that. And probably the most effective way to get in touch with that would be through Help Scout, just saying, hey, can you rerun the EVA report? I think I made these corrections. I would like to double check. For reports like the COC APR, ESG CAPER, those are all reports that are like on the reporting tab.
Right.
And the first 6 sections, or the sections that say, table 6A, E, F, those are all directly related to data quality, that not all, but a lot of the data quality issues that ICA addresses, that EVA addresses, are going to be connected to those. So things like move-in date are going to be missing from that, but other things like income errors are going to be highlighted by the APR, by the CAPER. Those can be run by anybody in the system, and you don't need a business objects license to access them, and they are also live. So if you go and you make a correction, you can pull the report report again, you'll have to hit run report. But you can run that same report within the minute that you made a correction, and you can see if it actually registered as a correction or not. And so those can also are effective for any project type, any funding source. You don't need to be ESG funded. You can be an SSO project, a homeless prevention project, and still get utility from those reports as well, which I think just a lot of people don't know how to use those reports to their full capacity, which is another aspect of training that we're going to be getting into at some point.
Thank you. I appreciate that reminder about those APR and CAPER reports. I do run those occasionally, but I didn't think that I could cross-check. So thanks for that reminder. I appreciate that.
I had a
So,
question.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Nikisha. My apologies.
I had a question about the error report. Is that something do providers get that on a monthly basis?
So the EVA error reports, so the quarterly robust checks, those ones will be quarterly. Other error reports, like that Casper was talking about, can be run whenever. So it's basically a matter of like making folks, aware that they have the ability to run these reports for themselves whenever, and then making sure they know how to fix the errors. And then, I don't know, encouraging that habit to some degree. If I had some sort of incentive to offer, I would, of course, but it's not how it works on my end of the spectrum.
And would you, if we I don't know if this would break the system or not, but if we started to encourage providers to go in and do the ICA training, that seems to be a bit more robust. Is that something that you would encourage us to do, or you like, hold off, let's wait until the system kind of evens itself out before we do that?
So, I mean, like in an ideal world, I would just say, yes, let's have everybody go through training. I also don't think that the staff time is available to have everyone sit through 4 hours of training at once. And so as much as I would love to say, yes, everybody go back through it, I don't know like how feasible that really is. And I also don't want to be the guy that's just like, here's this 4-hour video, you now have series of videos you now have to watch, and then like not like have any proof that you did it on the other end, because we wouldn't be able to test all 400 people at the same time, right? So it's a matter of like, if we see a user that's having particular issues, we may start to recommend that folks go back through, and then sort of making it more accessible to have just like snippets in the LMS, so that folks can like say, I forgot how to do the housing move-in dates. I just need a video on how it works. And so that'll be, those are the types of things that we keep in the LMS too.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dean.
So in terms of quality data, and that's obviously a broad term and it's got a lot of tentacles, et cetera. Could you sort of speak to the importance of that and sort of how that is flowing through our system? I mean, we do have another small group that's looking at system performance measures, for example, and so we're looking at information that's already been reported, but we know that in order for those decisions to be made at a system level, we need to have quality. Quality data is needed everywhere. So I didn't know if you could just sort of speak a little bit to that.
It's a great way to tee it up, Dean. So I think this goes with any sort of analysis you're ever going to see, that if your underlying data quality is poor, then your analysis makes no difference, because you're effectively analyzing things that aren't real or are incredibly flawed in some way. And so, the data quality is really like the fundamental piece that makes the analysis work, or else you're just spending your time, cleaning data forever and ever if you don't have the data quality. And with this large of a data set, and it being, this is a human services database. It's not something where you can just inherently know that this person lives in this place, therefore I can apply this value, or that just by looking at a name, you can't know what their history of homelessness was, or whether they're a veteran, or what have you. So it's really dependent upon the providers to have the correct it, or to have a good standard of data quality in order for analysis to work at all. So it's the foundational thing that makes the rest of it go. So that's it's a bit of a roundabout way of saying that, like, data quality really might be more important than the analysis in the aggregate, because without it, you have no analysis, or your analysis is just incomplete and is, unreliable. So, yeah, it's really, really crucial to a lot of the things we do, especially system performance measures. And then that data, while it seems like it's just like, we're over here doing this thing, and you see some numbers sometime in the spring, all those numbers are reported to HUD, who then turns around and uses whatever information we've submitted through our 3 annual reports and puts together the NOFO for the entire country based upon each submission that has happened. So it's really important, sort of in the aggregate too.
Yeah, and I would just sort of build on that. I mean, the system performance is really, really critical. I sort of see that building the momentum through the system where people have confidence that the data is solid, that they can generate their own reports, that then they can use that data for, Tedford or for Parable or whatever organization, then we can continue to build that momentum so that everyone through the system can be more and more confident that we do have quality data. Because there have been times when people have wanted to rely on, well, we don't use that because we can't count on that, or, so it is about people trusting that we do have that.
Yeah. And I think, there's some incentive there if you're at the provider level, and the agencies that have the best data quality are also, in my experience, the agencies that are most able to use that same data and pivot to a different funder and seek outside sources with a data set that is good and reliable and can be used for multiple applications outside of your typical funding sources. So it's obviously beneficial if at the agency level to have really solid data as well.
All right, Nikisha, that's all for me.
Anyone else have any questions?
I'm like thinking as everyone's talking, and really appreciate the overview. One thing I'm thinking, I think in your presentation you were talking about it's hard because there's not a lot of carrots to offer at this point. So it's like you're just coming and being like the bad guy, or that's how it feels to some people. And so kind of to the point Dean was just making, like, I wonder if there's, like, if we have examples of like other COCs or even just agencies within Maine that have had success, like, hey, when you have better data quality, it bears out that like you get greater opportunities for funding or something like that. I'm not sure how much we'd be able to access that, but I wonder if that might be a way into, it's not directly a carrot, but it's, hey, like I feel like we're doing that as hub coordinators all the time, where it's like, hey, data quality is important because it will help us advocate for funding. And that's like, it's not really enough of a carrot sometimes, but I think if we had some proof that it does work, that might be like one strategy to kind of tackle this as we work towards, we all want a better system, but obviously some people are, I think, understandably to a certain extent, resistant because they've gotten used to doing it one way, and
Oh,
it's
sure.
a lot of work to change. So, so I just wanted to throw that out there, and really appreciate all the discussion on this topic.
Casper, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can at least start, and then Pat, if you have any other examples or ideas, you can follow up, obviously. Just thinking about the communities that I work with in Iowa, at least, they've got data quality built into their application process. And so in order to apply for COC funds, you have to demonstrate like a bare minimum of data quality. So like making sure that all of these UDEs are answered, for instance, is one of the data quality metrics. And then making sure that you're under a certain threshold for move-in date errors or exit errors, relationship to head of household errors, things that are data quality points that not only affect, individual agencies' ability to analyze their own information and assess it accurately, but also have, larger effects on the COC as a whole when it comes to things like the LSA, which really do hammer home like these data quality points. So if individual projects are like able to address those individual data quality errors, then it makes the whole LSA process easier. And our COCs here have said, hey, we are, as part of that carrot, we are basically going to be checking for that data quality, those data quality metrics as part of the COC funding application for projects that are already in the system, at least, which doesn't quite do what you were asking about, but is a technique and a component that has been really helpful in watching data quality improve, at least in regards to those particular projects.
Yeah, I think like from a Maine specific lens, it's hard from over here to know the answer there because we haven't been around it long enough to like give you an example. There may be one. I just don't know it at this point. So and I would bet there will be examples, but again, like the carrot is not, it's not reality yet. So it's hard for me to just say, yeah, it'll happen. But yeah, it's a great question.
So we've got about 3 minutes left, and I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you,
Sure.
Cass, and Jeff, and I forgot who the other person was from ICA. Mahindra, thank you so much for coming in, and everyone for being so focused in on this conversation. Hope that we can continue it in our meeting next month. I do want to remind you all, we will be also having our quarterly full outcomes committee meeting. So if you want to get an update on what the other subcommittee is working on and getting accomplished, please make sure you join that meeting as well. I know we'll have 2 instead of 1, but I promise it's only once a quarter. And then once we get the minutes from this meeting, I'll make sure I send those along as soon as possible so that you can kind of re-up on what Patrick said in his presentation. Patrick, would you mind sending me the presentation? And then I can
That's fine.
Okay. And then I'll send that out to everyone. So if anyone missed the meeting today, they'll have that as well. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts before we close out today? All right, wonderful. Thank you all, and I will see you all in a month.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.